It started with a scream that no one in the house could explain. Not a child's scream, not a woman's scream, but something in between. The neighbors in rural Ohio would later say the sound came from 3 voices at the same time, perfectly synchronized, as if one throat was speaking through 3 bodies. And that was the moment people realized something was terribly wrong with the Keller triplets. What happened in that farmhouse in 1856 would become one of the strangest cases ever recorded in American history. A case doctors could not explain, priests refused to talk about, and locals swore should never be spoken of after dark. Tonight on Night Archive, we are opening the files again, because the mystery of the Ohio triplets is still unsolved, and what happened to them should not have been possible. Before we go deeper into this story, make sure to like this video and subscribe to Night Archive, because the stories we uncover here are the ones history tried to bury. And the next one might be even darker than this. The year was 1856. A quiet farming community outside Chillicothe, Ohio. The Keller family lived in a wooden farmhouse surrounded by cornfields, forest, and miles of empty land. Jacob Keller and his wife Margaret were known as normal, hardworking people. They were not rich, not poor, just another family trying to survive. When Margaret became pregnant in the winter of 1855, nobody expected anything unusual. But the pregnancy lasted longer than normal, almost 10 months, and Margaret kept telling her husband the same thing every night. She said she felt 3 heartbeats. At first, Jacob laughed it off. Doctors at the time barely understood normal childbirth, let alone something like that. But when the labor finally began, the midwife who was called to the house would later say she knew immediately something was wrong. Margaret did not scream once. She just stared at the ceiling, whispering the same words again and again. They are listening, they are waiting. Hours later, the first baby was born, then the second, then the third, triplets. That alone was rare enough in 1856. But what made everyone uncomfortable was how quiet the room became after the birth. Normally, newborn babies cry. All 3 of them did not. They just stared. The midwife would later swear that the babies opened their eyes at the exact same moment and looked in the same direction, toward the door, as if someone else had entered the room. No one was there. For the first few weeks, the Keller family tried to live normally. They named the boys Thomas, Elias, and Rowan. But it did not take long before Margaret started noticing things that made her afraid to be alone with them. Whenever one of the babies cried, the other 2 cried at the exact same second. Whenever one stopped, all stopped. Whenever one slept, all slept, perfectly together. At first, Jacob thought it was just coincidence, until the night he saw it himself. He was holding Thomas in his arms, when suddenly the baby turned his head and looked toward the fireplace. At the same moment, Margaret gasped, because the other two babies, lying across the room, turned their heads the exact same way. Same movement, same speed, same expression. Jacob dropped the candle he was holding, and for the first time, he looked scared. From that night on, the Keller house stopped feeling like a home. People in the town began whispering. Some said the triplets shared one soul. Some said they were cursed. Some said children born together like that should never have survived. And then something happened that made the whispers turn into fear. When the boys turned 3 years old, they started speaking, but not to their parents. They spoke to each other. Late at night, Margaret would wake up hearing voices from their room, not laughing, not playing, talking, slow, quiet, almost like chanting. One night she opened the door without making a sound. The 3 boys were sitting on the floor in a circle, facing each other. No toys, no light, just staring. And all 3 were whispering the same words at the same time. Margaret could not understand what language it was, but she knew one thing. It was not English. She slammed the door shut and woke Jacob. When they went back into the room together, the boys were asleep, all 3 in their beds, like nothing happened. Jacob told his wife it was just imagination, but deep down he knew she was not lying. Because the next morning, he found something scratched into the wooden floor between their beds. 3 circles, connected. He never told Margaret what he saw. Instead, he covered it with a rug. From that day forward, the Keller triplets were never left alone. But that only made things worse, because when they turned 5, the first real incident happened. And after that night, the town of Chillicothe stopped calling them children. They started calling them something else, something no one wanted to say out loud. After that night, Jacob Keller stopped telling people that his sons were normal children. He stopped taking them to town. He stopped letting neighbors visit. But in a small Ohio farming community in 1856, secrets never stay hidden for long. People had already heard stories. They heard the boys never played with other children. They heard the boys spoke at night. They heard the boys moved the same way, like mirrors. What nobody expected was what happened during the winter of 1861. The triplets were 9 years old when the first accident happened. It was late evening, and Jacob was repairing a broken fence near the barn. Thomas was helping him, carrying small pieces of wood. Inside the house, Margaret was with Elias and Rowan. Suddenly, Margaret heard a loud crack outside, followed by Jacob shouting. She ran to the door. Jacob was on the ground, holding his arm in pain. A heavy wooden beam had fallen from the barn wall. Thomas was standing next to him, frozen, staring. Margaret rushed outside, but before she reached them, she heard something behind her. A scream. Inside the house. She turned around and ran back in. Elias was on the floor, holding his arm, crying. Margaret's heart stopped. His arm was twisted in the exact same way Jacob's was. She looked toward the corner of the room. Rowan was standing there, pale, shaking, holding his arm too. 3 injuries. At the same time, same place, same position. Margaret did not wait for an explanation. That night, she told Jacob something she had been afraid to say for years. She said the boys were not just brothers. She said they were connected, not like normal siblings. Something deeper, something wrong. Jacob didn't answer because he already believed it. From that day forward, the Keller family stopped going to church, but the church came to them. A local pastor visited the house after hearing rumors about the children. He expected to find 3 quiet boys. Instead, he found something that made him leave before sunset. He later told people the boys never looked at him one at a time. Whenever he spoke, all 3 stared at him together. Same expression, same blink, same smile. During dinner, the pastor asked one simple question. Which one of you is the oldest? The boys looked at each other. Then all 3 answered at the same time. We are the same. The pastor dropped his fork. No one laughed. No one spoke. That night, he told Jacob something no father wants to hear. He said he had seen strange things before, but never like this. He said the boys should never be separated, and they should never be allowed to sleep in different rooms. Jacob asked why. The pastor did not answer right away. He just said, because whatever is inside them is not divided. After that visit, Margaret became terrified of one thing more than anything else. She was afraid of what would happen if one of them died. For years, nothing happened. The boys grew older, quieter, stranger. They stopped talking to other people completely, but they never stopped talking to each other. Sometimes without words, sometimes without sound. Neighbors claimed they saw the triplets standing in the field at night, not moving, just staring at the sky. Always together, always in the same position. Then came the night in 1866, the night that turned the Keller family story into a legend people still talk about on Night Archive today. It was summer, hot, no wind. Jacob woke up in the middle of the night because he heard footsteps in the hallway. Slow, even 3 steps at a time. He opened his bedroom door. The hallway was dark, but he could see the boys standing at the end of it. All 3 looking at him, not blinking. Jacob asked what they were doing awake. None of them answered. Instead, they all turned their heads at the same time toward the front door. Then they started walking. Same step, same speed. Jacob followed them outside. The moon was bright enough to see the field clearly. The boys walked into the grass and stopped near the old oak tree behind the house. They stood there in silence. Jacob shouted for them to come back. They didn't move. Then something happened he would never forget. Thomas suddenly fell to his knees. At the exact same second, Elias and Rowan fell too. All three began gasping for air. Jacob ran toward them, but before he reached them, the gasping stopped. Silence. The three boys slowly lifted their heads and spoke, not one by one, all together. We heard it calling. Jacob grabbed Thomas and tried to pull him up, but the boy didn't move. Not because he refused, because he couldn't. Thomas collapsed forward, unconscious. At the same moment, Elias and Rowan collapsed too. Jacob carried them back to the house, with Margaret screaming behind him. All three were placed in separate beds, all three breathing, but barely. For hours they didn't wake up. Just before sunrise, Thomas stopped breathing. Margaret screamed so loud the neighbors heard it across the fields. Jacob checked Elias. No breath. Then Rowan. Nothing. 3 deaths. Same second. Same moment. The doctor arrived later that morning. He examined the bodies for hours. No wounds, no illness, no poison, nothing. He wrote in his report that the cause of death was unknown. But what he said quietly to Jacob before leaving stayed in his mind forever. He said he had seen twins die together before, but never triplets, and never like this. The Keller farmhouse was abandoned 2 years later. No one wanted to live there. People said strange sounds came from the field at night. 3 voices, whispering. Some say the wooden floor inside the old bedroom still has marks carved into it. 3 circles, connected. No one knows who made them. No one knows what the boys meant when they said they heard something calling. And even today, historians cannot explain how 3 healthy children could live together, feel together, get hurt together, and die at the exact same second. If this story gave you chills, write in the comments what you think really happened to the Keller triplets, and share this video with someone who loves unsolved mysteries. Because the more people hear these stories, the harder it becomes for history to hide them. And if you want to hear more forgotten cases like this, stay here with Night Archive. Because some mysteries were never meant to be solved.